Okay, so I just want to ask you, where did the idea of Graticube come from?
Was a combination of things. One was I was originally studying entrepreneurship, and that's kind of things takes thousands of dollars, and meeting some really interesting people who were like gurus of their craft. And you'd see people there, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, and at the event, it just really felt inspired. Great conversations, cool people. And then you'd sort of go back. It for me was like going back to normal life and thinking, wow, it's not the same. And then I'd go back 6 months later or 3 months or whatever the next period was for a seminar. I was like, wow, this is great again. What is it? What is it about these events? And it was partly the content, but also the people and the sort of elements of those conversations were really interesting to me. So I thought, well, after doing this for 10, 15 years and really enjoying it and applying it in my life and seeing a lot of benefit, I thought, well, how could I share that with other people? How could we take the sort of elements of entrepreneurship and growth and learning and personal development and make it available without the guru, without the travel, without the thousands of dollars? So that was like part one. And then part two was going to Burning Man silent for a week and listening, connecting with people without words. And for me, that practice of listening was really powerful. And so there was a combination of saying, well, here are these great, entrepreneurial things I'm learning and the great conversations I'm having. And then here's an amazing collection of human beings, also great conversations. So what are the common elements? And how could we bring that together and have more people experience the beauty of those interactions? And so Graticube was born based on curiosity, gratitude, vulnerability, listening, and trust. Essentially, those elements are baked into the game.
And have you had any deep realizations through playing Graticube? And if so, what are they?
Well, there have been a lot of deep realizations. I think every time I play, I feel inspired by the stories that I hear. And I feel like as much as we may seek great information from people who are very successful, so to speak, however we define success, the people around us often have great wisdom. And, even just through sharing something, I see a side of myself that I didn't see before. And partly hearing what's reflected back to me, I think there are great opportunities there. And often, I don't know that we normally have those. I don't think we normally have great moments of reflection from every conversation, but this is just more often. What I'm most surprised about is that the game consistently does that, no matter where we play and who we play with, whether it's best friends or people that are just getting to know each other, perfect strangers. The game continues to hold a safe space for people to have those deep reflections.
So do you consider Graticube then to be a tool for self-transformation, or how do you think of Graticube? Do you think of it in any specific sort of way? Do you think it as a way for self-transformation, as a way to connect with others, or a little bit of both?
I think it's both, and you can play a number of ways. Like you could play on your own, roll the dice, pull a card in the morning just for yourself to set intention for the day and bring awareness. I think it's a tool of awareness. So transformation happens from an inside out perspective, right? Inside and then expands outward. I think it happens first with awareness. So I become aware of something, and then I look at how I might change or adapt or apply that into my life. So I think it is an evolutionary tool, and it's relationships are a reflection of me.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm having a chance to go in and get clear about my intention, get clear about that, and maybe take an action on something that comes up, then that's where it's going to start is first awareness, then brings into my consciousness. I decide if I want to take an action around it. And so I think that could be useful to improve my relationships because I'm starting with a better relationship with myself.
Hmm. Hmm. And who's Graticube for?
I think it's really, I mean, I hate to say everyone because I think there's some people that may choose not to play it, but it can be played by anyone and anyone over a certain age, right? So even if you're 4 years old, 5 years old, and you're still learning some of these words, like my friends have kids that have never heard the word regret. And so when the word regret came up on the space cube, his daughter said, well, what is that? And so the parents had to describe what regret is to her. And then she instantly could play because she knew she had a moment of regret once she knew what the concept was. And that helped her go deeper with her parents and in that moment. So I think that this is really for anyone who wants to explore a deeper sort of relationship with themselves and with others.
I love that. I too have experienced that Gratitude is an accelerated tool for connection, where if me and you were to have a conversation, we may eventually get to a deep place of understanding and of vulnerability, wisdom, truth, honesty, all of these wonderful things. But setting the intention with Gratitude seems to almost expedite this process. Have you seen this happen at scale with everybody that plays, or do you think that each game is dynamic and fluid, and that each person takes away what they want from playing the game?
I think it's a both and, right? So in one way, it's unique. Each person's going to have their own experience, and I think first it's a question of who you're playing with. You know, if you're a guppy, don't go swim with the sharks. If there are people you don't want to play with, just having the game there is not going to have them play at a deeper level. Although some
Hmm.
people will, they'll sort of ascend. It's like an elevator, right? Whether you're
Right.
pressing the button to go up in the elevator, going down the elevator is just kind of is determined by the relationship itself. So I think if you have sort of the right people there, I mean, and when I say that, like people that you feel willing to share with, that's sort of the minimum level. You're willing to share something real with the people that you're playing with, and they're willing to listen. Like if you can establish that, then this game will have I think great outcomes, but it depends on each group. So some people, it's funny to me, like I'll say this, when I was at Burning Man, I heard people, because I'm silent for the whole week, right? So I hear
Right.
people say, I don't mean to interrupt, but, so I'm just flying the wall, listening to another conversation. And it was like a sport. People are just ready to interrupt. They're waiting to interrupt. They have their own ideas. They're not listening. They're just waiting to speak. And they're going to jump in. They're not waiting anymore. They're just jumping in. And so that's one side. That's the sort of default, I think, of where a lot of people start. And I don't mean everyone, but a lot of people start there. And then there's there's a side of, well, I normally wouldn't share something this vulnerable, but. And so what's the difference? Why is somebody in one case willing to share and in another case not? And I think it's because they're around people they're willing to listen, and they're in a vulnerable state that's being honored. So that's sort of, again, the minimum level. If you're there, then amazing things can happen. And then I think it's more predictable that people are going to have a great experience. So in other words, if there's trust, vulnerability, and that willingness to share, people will share it, and you'll hear amazing things. Imagine if you're willing to not interrupt somebody, what they might share with you.
Imagine what you might hear, right? Imagine what you might take in. What about the people that aren't willing to share? What about them? Can they get to a place of being able to share with this? Can you envision people like friends or family that is in that place of sharing, dragging them into this, and then them having this tremendous uplifting experience? Or what do you think about the rest of the people that aren't willing to share currently?
I think it goes by level. I mean, there are some people that will not share at all.
Hmm.
That's okay, and it really, all of it's okay. We're having an experience, it's all okay. Some people won't share very deeply, and then some people will share very deeply. Then some people will overshare, right? So you have this spectrum of humanity, right, from not to all the way. And I think that for some people, what may seem like a small share could be a very big share, and it starts there. It starts maybe with a little bit of willingness. It's like the pool, and you stick your toe in, you're like, okay, well, let's see, can I? And then somebody gets in, and another person, pretty soon it's a pool party. So
Yeah.
it depends on if there's that brave person, that courageous person that's willing to try something new. And that's typically how anything starts, new technology, a new idea, a new, whatever it is, new food. And it takes that person to try and go, it's not going to kill me. Okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to like it, but I'll try it. And that's what it comes down to. So I've been in rooms where there's somebody sort of in the background, and it's normally like a dad or a brother, or just hanging out, and I don't want to play, but they're within earshot of it, and not lurking necessarily, but their presence is felt. And I've noticed that those people are just dipping their toe in the water. And if you give them a further invitation after they've heard one or two people share, it's not so scary. It may seem like, oh, there are sharks in those waters. Maybe not, but a lot of times not. And those people will then share. I've been in other games where people they'll share something that I thought was kind of surface level, and everybody's passing gratitude cards to them because, like, wow, that was amazing. And I'm an outsider to it. Sometimes I just come to facilitate a game, And the person said, well, okay, this is a family, right? So I'm facilitating for a group of friends and family. And this guy says, no, you don't understand. She never shares,
Hmm.
ever shares. And that was huge. I didn't have the context to know that was huge. And so it was fun to sort of see that even though it seemed like a baby step, it was really a massive movement into something new for her. And she took to courage, and she received the gratitude cards as a way to encourage more sharing.
So that sharing breeds the awareness, which breeds potential change. Now, how do we use Gratitude in the future as a tool for all of humanity? Just if we were to zoom out, think really big, and just visualize if if hypothetically Gratitude could be used to benefit all of humanity and accelerate the collective consciousness, how would it do so, and how would we do so?
That's a great question. I appreciate that question. I think it's a muscle that you build. The game is helping you see a way to interact differently. Now, maybe people are already there. Some people may walk in the game and say, "Oh, this is great. It's just like a normal conversation." Other people go, "Whoa, this is like a totally elevated place. It's weird. I don't know how to do it." That could happen too. I think it's a muscle though. So what I was surprised by at Burning Man, when I was silent, I heard a story from this lady, and she basically had been waiting to tell the story, and no, she didn't know if anyone wanted to listen, but she found somebody miraculously to her that
The
was willing to
silent
listen.
man.
And she said, "This is such a gift." Now, at Burning Man, you give gifts. It's not. Some people think it's barter. It's like an economy of barter. It's not. It's a gift. So someone might just make pancakes on a Tuesday morning and give the pancakes out to people, but they're not expecting anything in return. She thought that my gift was listening, and later reflected, I'm like, I guess it was. I didn't go in there thinking that was going to be my gift, but to her, that was a gift. And it really made me think about the value of something like listening. So you think about the world, you think about zooming out in the bigger picture. What if we listened better? Listening isn't just being silent, because, that could be it, right? You're just silent, but your mind is somewhere else. You're not really hearing what that person is telling you. Listening and being in tune with somebody where you have care for what they're saying, that's another level. So imagine that we listen better in the world, that we were willing to hold a space for other people to share, even if it was uncomfortable, even if we didn't agree with what they said, but they were able to speak their truth and recognize, hey, this is a person's truth, even though I'm listening to it and I don't agree, that it's okay. So I think that for a question like peace in the world, we could back away a little bit from being so interesting and sharing everything that we think is so important from our own perspective, and take a moment and listen to others, hold that space, trust, and it does take vulnerability to do that. But I think that's something that we see again and again and again is a powerful part of leadership, is being vulnerable versus maybe just talking all the time.
Hmm. Hmm. And does it start with listening? Do you think that that's a good starting place for somebody that is like, yeah, I hear all this stuff. It's a little bit over my head. I haven't even taken that little step. Is just tuning into what others have to say and really being present with listening. Did you find in your experience that that helped you with the content of your own mind, helped you be more mindful, more aware of your thoughts so that you could then in turn be present in just day-to-day situations and just in life in general as a byproduct of practicing that silence during Burning Man?
Another great question. I think part of the first thing is curiosity. If you're interested, where does that come from, right? So maybe we share something. For me, my top value is curiosity. I'm there. I'm curious about the world, and I want to learn. And I want to evolve. So all those are sort of wrapped into one thing. I think the first piece of that is a desire to connect out of curiosity, right? So you look at something, you look at someone, whatever is in your environment. Maybe it's a new food, right? And so first you look at the food, you go, "Oh, I'm curious about that." If you're not curious, it doesn't matter. Don't put it on the table, right? If it has no interest, if it doesn't evoke any interest, then why have it there? So I think it starts with curiosity, and then from there, it's interesting to think, if we just took that food example, some people say, I don't like it. Well, and he's like the little kid, right? I don't like it. You haven't tried it yet. Well, I know I'm not going to like it. Well, how do you know? I can see I'm not going to like it. It's like,
Mhm.
it's funny. So I think that we sort of get to a very basic, almost childlike level with these things. And, you know, are we truly interested in what we're looking at, or are we just trying to be interesting? So it starts with curiosity, it starts with being interested, and then listening is a natural part of that curiosity. If I'm really going to be curious, I'm really going to be interested, then I'm going to find somebody that maybe knows about this fruit or this experience or this life, and I'm going to ask a question, then I'm going to shut up and listen. And the
Hmm.
value of that gives me an opportunity to learn something.
And would you say that playing Graticube is a leap of faith? And do you think that playing Graticube is the desire to change on some level? If we look at how the universe operates from what we can perceive, we know that the only thing that is constant is change. Everything is constantly changing. So from that, could we assume that as humans, it is completely natural for us to be changing all the time as well? And so could we embrace that sort of perception as an opening to playing Graticube and just diving into it head first? First question. Second part of the question is that deterrence from jumping in, right? And jumping in, being vulnerable, sharing. Is that some sort of conditioning? Is that how we're just brought up? Is that what other people have told us? Or this is it just belief systems that are prohibiting us from evolving? And if so, how does this tool help overcome that?
Great questions. So you said head first, which is
I said a lot.
first, right? And I think that's where in this society, and I can't speak for all societies, I live in this American society, and I think a lot of the world here in my, you know, in Denver, Colorado is very head first. It's very mind dominated, the life we live. And the question of, you know, say mind or head versus heart and soul, they're different questions. And it's like trying to describe, if I said to you, hey, here's what it's like to ride a bike, I could do that from a mechanical engineering perspective, and I could talk about centrifugal motion and balance and sort of how the wheels and the gears work. And I could give you a very heady description of how to ride a bike.
Right.
And if you remember the first time ever riding a bike, you probably remember the feeling more than you remember the mechanics of this or that. And even maybe looking at it, you looked at it with your head and you went, oh, that looks possible, but it may also be fun. And you see somebody else that might be having fun and you go, oh, I want to do that. And so I think with anything in life, and you said change, and yes, change is a constant, right? And yet, even though change is a constant, it doesn't mean I want to constantly change, right? That may be affronting to my mind, because the mind wants to be right. The mind wants to build a world of control. Basically, it says I've got it figured out. The mind figures it out, and then it builds a little castle around that. And if it doesn't fit into that puzzle, then it's not welcome. So the heart is very different. The heart is where we explore and we feel, and it's got to be safe to do that too. You know, we do some of these things for evolutionary reasons. I think we want to protect ourselves, and so some change is not very welcome because I could die. And if the question is death, then don't do it. You know, some people are
Yeah.
afraid of public speaking more than they are of death, right? So why? Why is that? So there's a certain, like, will I be accepted? Will people accept me for who I am? Which is a very mind dominated kind of thing. But if there's heart, if there's love there, if there's acceptance, if people are welcoming and they're willing to listen, then it's okay to be vulnerable. So I think it's a question of mind versus heart. And it's how do you get out of your head? And if you listen to music, if you watch any sort of art, it's all about getting out of our heads and into our heart. So however that happens, I think what's really beautiful about the game is that's the outcome, and it's part of the process is allowing that. And naturally you go, okay, you roll dice, you pull a card. Well, that's easy. I can understand that conceptually. I get that in my head. How is that going to make any difference? Fine. It doesn't make any difference in my head. And then you connect with your heart. Then you go inside. And that's the beauty of Graticube. Is as soon as you roll the cards or roll the dice and pull a card, you move into that space out of head into heart. And it's, I think, a fast way to get there. Not that fast is better, but that it's a relatively smooth transition from head to heart, where people at the end of the game, you can see that they're there. You can feel it. You can see it in their eyes, and you can feel it.
I think that's what makes Graticube special, is that Graticube is a heart first game. It's a heart centered game. And at least in the West, we live in a very mind dominated culture, and we don't always think about tapping into the heart center and how that plays out in our life. So I just want to leave this for everybody that's listening. Our mission is play it forward. So we want you to play it forward, and we want you to take some sort of action in real life. So the action that I'm going to take, and that Sam's hopefully going to take with me, and hopefully everybody that's listening is going to take, is look at your life, reflect 5 minutes, and see if you can incorporate the heart center more into your daily activities, and try to do that. Try to consciously listen from the heart space and just experiment and see what happens as a result of that. And of course, if you want to experience this game, you can go to graticube.game and you can get the game and you can play with your friends or family. It is an incredible tool for self connection, for shared connection, and it really does expedite that process and get you there faster. And we're not saying faster is better, but we do believe that this tool has the potential for human evolution at a very deep level. And that if you take this step, then you will not regret it. Like no regret portion of the dice, that you will in fact embrace this and you will want to play again. So thank you so much. This is Sam Sokol, co-founder of Graticube, and we appreciate y'all for listening. So play it forward.